If you spent any time in Deadlock's hideout, you're probably aware of this blank room just up the stairs right near where you spawn in. What if I told you this room might soon, one day, have a teleporter in it that takes you to a wardrobe where you can change your hero's skins and outfits and all that kind of crazy stuff? Hey everyone, this is Connor here at Dead Unlocked, and that is kind of the leak today from Minesweeper. I want to spend some time talking about this, as well as just kind of, again, my thoughts on the hideout. I've made a whole video about the hideout in the past. I really do think this is like a core part of what makes Deadlock so unique, kind of a part of its secret sauce. So I want to talk about some ideas I have for the hideout, what we should expect, and then obviously cover the news from today. So the leak or kind of piece of news that I want to frame a lot of today's discussion around comes from Minesweeper, where he posted this kind of recreation from someone named Neutral Drift. Also from around late May, they are testing the skin wardrobe upstairs in the hideout using the teleporter. The system is in the game, but there are currently no actual skins. They're only using old work-in-progress models for temp testing. So this is kind of the claim right now, that this space, rather than just being an empty area, I always kind of theorized that maybe the boxes and the trash would diminish as we got more and more heroes of the cast and maybe got closer to an open beta. But it appears instead this is going to be a way to access a wardrobe where you change skins. I also just want to take a second to point out, this is hilarious, that right now, basically you're just using old work-in-progress models for temp testing. So it'd be hilarious if like you change skins and it was like an old rendition of like Abrams or an old McGinnis or like Boho even, or someone like that. Just a hilarious image in mind as we talk about like the early rendition of what the wardrobe could look like in the hideout. But the room upstairs that we were just in is not the only place in the hideout that kind of indicates us or gives us a hint about what we should expect from the space in the future. This is also one of the biggest indicators. So if you've played Deadlock for a long time, you should have a snow globe on your fireplace mantle, as well as this kind of little animated, little moving figurine, which I actually think Dead Air posted a really cool thing about, kind of explaining this is like an ode to like a really old animator, I believe. Yeah, you'll have to check me on that. But in any case, there's clearly going to be mementos or things that you can have in your hideout over the course of this game's history that are going to point back big and small to things like this. So right now we have things on the mantle. Maybe in the future, these are trophies. There's even a trophy case in the hideout. You know, there's a little area ready for this over here. There's also a lot of art featured in the hideout. So it tells me that, one, you're either going to be able to customize all this in the future without mods, and these are going to be like little things that you unlock in the game, or at the very least, there are going to be progress indicators in the hideout, which I just think is a really cool thing, and something that I think a lot of players may be taking for granted as we get, kind of started in Deadlock. So on top of skins and in-game mementos, there's also a way to participate in community events and seasonal events in the hideout. And for now, that has been right here, where this little guy's roaming. He's just pacing, waiting for the next update. Brother, I feel you. That's been me for like the past 4 months. But in any case, if you're new to Deadlock, this has been a really cool space. When you play in games, you get to vote on what hero you want to see next. This was done for the Old Gods New Blood update, and also just the 6 hero update long before that. But in general, this, again, just the sentiment that you're going to be able to participate in community events from within the hideout is a really cool idea and should tip us off to maybe a lot more coming. So again, when you look outside the window right now, what do you see? A massive, massive city that maybe looks like one day we'll be able to traverse it. Who knows? And obviously the massive maelstrom going on over the large building there. But again, kind of linking this section and just kind of imagining what could happen outside the walls of the hideout. Who knows? Maybe even with like this window or with a teleporter, perhaps. It seems like we're going to be able to really kind of key into seasonal events through the hideout. And again, this is a cool way to talk about Deadlock, because when we think about Deadlock, most often we really just talk about the gameplay and kind of how do we fix X thing with X patch. And it kind of limits the game to being this thing that happens from the time you load in to the match, to the time the match ends. But again, with seasonal things like this, with hero voting, with things like the snow globes over here, mementos you can earn, it really starts to stretch Deadlock from being a game you play from the time you load into a match to a game you play from the time you boot up the game. And that is such a core distinction I think that Deadlock is pulling off really successfully here in an alpha state, is that it pulls you in from the moment you boot it up, which I really do think is such a signature calling card for Deadlock and such a cool thing. The hideout also notably just offers a lot of utility to players. So if you wanted to spectate a game, you really don't have to engage with any menus in Deadlock. It's pretty cool. You can come over here and just watch games like this. You can go over here and learn about the news, right? But I do think this, if we're talking about the theater room in particular, this kind of watching area right now, it's obviously very small, very minimal, and is really just meant to like kind of watch games that are going on. You know, if you load in here, you can see kind of the most spectated games, right? Imagine this is like an arena you can teleport to in the future to show off modern, current esports in Deadlock, right? Like let's say Night Shift, for example. We all love Night Shift here. Let's say you could teleport to a bar or like a little pub, and you could watch Night Shift in the game or something. Or maybe it's like, again, you can kind of iterate creatively on a lot of different ways here, but basically that to say, once esports really gets spun up in this game, like again, more earnestly than they are now, much larger prize pools, bigger tournament organizers, etc., it would be really cool to be able to see kind of a plug-in for that in Deadlock, kind of natively provided by devs. So maybe that's an area you go to watch games. Maybe it's just some way, you know, maybe it's the hero voting table and you're voting on teams you want to win the tournament. Maybe there's a little bracket up on the wall you can complete. World Cup just started, so I'm all into brackets right now. You know, I've been doing my World Cup bracket. But anyway, I think that, again, utility is a huge thing in this game that usually gets accessed from menus in other games, and I would love Deadlock to again, more earnestly kind of get into the idea of how can we engage with not only the community, not only with our past accomplishments, but also just things that players are going to want to be watching, like current matches, like Deadlock Esports. They're already clearly started here, but again, we have to imagine that everything in the current Hideout is going to be iterated upon so many times. I imagine this room is no exception. I also, you know, you can't make a video about the Hideout without talking about Rem's little room. This is by far just one of the most adorable things they've ever put in the game. Such a cool thing. And again, if we're using the current Hideout as kind of like our rough draft or our first draft or whatever you want to call it of what we're going to see with Deadlock in the future, I think we should expect a lot more heroes to have little rooms like Rem. This is very clearly a safe place for Rem and his little helpers to hang out. I don't see why all heroes in Deadlock won't have something like this in the future. Again, especially when we talk about like teleporting outside of the walls of the specific hideout itself, I think we can really drum up a lot of possibilities for what that could be. Maybe it's Blackmore Academy, maybe it's OSIC, maybe it's, you know, fill in the blank, just the New York City streets, maybe it's the subway. I can imagine there are going to be a lot of different lore mechanics delivered through the hideout and just little flavor things about heroes that we grow to love. I don't know about you all, but when this room was released, I would just come in here and hang out. I would just leave it on my second monitor. It's super soothing, it's adorable, and it's one of the coolest ways to kind of get a glimpse into who Rem is and what Rem's all about. At the end of the day, though, I think the Hideout will be enjoyed most by the players who play this game the most and love this game the most, but it also serves as a really good first impression of the game. When you boot into this and you can immediately walk around as a hero, you are already, I mean, from the moment you load up Deadlock for the first time, getting a feel for how to interact with the heroes, how to interact with the game, and it makes an otherwise very intimidating game feel, to me, a lot less so. So again, whether you're a longtime player and you've spent hours running around the atrium like I have, or hanging out with friends in here, or doing whatever you've done in the Hideout, I really would value this space in terms of just like what it does for the gaming experience of playing Deadlock. But I also would know that this is just the beginning. This is just the tip of the iceberg of what we could expect for the Hideout in Deadlock. I really do. I mean, I think this is one of my favorite things that has ever been added to any game. I just think it's such a cool thing. What a neat way to like just be immersed into the game's universe, into its world right away. But again, I think we should expect a lot. I think, again, the world is our oyster for the Hideout. We should really place expectations very high for what Valve could do with this. And again, I think a lot of people view the potential of Deadlock as being pretty limitless in terms of what it could be as a game, what the esport could be, etc. And I think the Hideout is so much the same way. What a cool thing. Can't say enough good things about the Hideout. But anyway, let me know what you all think about it. Let me know what you think about the leaks. God, my stutter is bad sometimes. Do we think the teleporter is going to be up here? Do we think a wardrobe's going to be up here? Do we think another hero is moving in? What do we all think about the Hideout? What do you love most about it? Let me know in the comments. And thank you all so much for tuning in. From our house to yours, we'll see you all next time here at Dead Unlocked.